Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Thanks for joining us again for an unscripted, extemporaneous look at some news, headlines, articles, and stories regarding the economy and gold and the world around us. Today we are going to have some fun. This is a fun video. These are images from two sites, mainly the Visual Capitalist, and they actually got a lot of the images from a site called demonocracy.com, and you'll see some watermarks on some of the images in there. But real quick, the only news we're going to cover today quickly is this morning's gold movements, which, as you can see by the chart there, is looking pretty good. Gold is actually up. When I last checked, 1950 or 1.59%. Silver popped up above 15 once again. And copper being down, well, as you know, he's the canary in the gold mine, or the canary in the mine, or the coal mine, whatever you want to call it, whatever mine copper's in as his little canary. And that could indicate some slowdowns and problems in the main industrial parts of the economy, or it's usually an indicator for some economic troubled waters. But that's not the point of today's story. There you go. There's gold prices today. You can see them right there. You got the chart popping up, looking healthy, looking strong. We're going to look at some cool computer-generated images today that give you an exact look on some physical representations of gold. You know, a lot of people, to them, gold's almost like an intangible item because they've never seen it or held it. So this is going to be a way, especially for some of us who have never seen large amounts of gold, because I've never held a London good delivery bar. I don't know how many people have. And most of us, this is what we're typically dealing with right here. We see small denomination of gold, you know, little plates, 1 grams, 5 grams, 10 grams, 20 grams, and 1 ounce. That's a 1 ounce gold there on the right. And you can see the little 1 gram cube and flake to the left there. And just look how small those little physical representations of gold are. Now we could, this is going to be a rambling conversation, this video, because I want to talk about a lot of things. I'm probably not going to get it all in here, but if you think about, you know, the arguments, there's someone driving a very loud, unmuffled engine by. If you think about how a lot of people try to bring up the excuse that there's not enough gold in the world to run the economy, or gold is too heavy, and there's those you know, very elementary little statements people make that really don't hold a lot of weight or logic. So we're going to move on here and look at some images of gold. Now here's some large denominations of gold plates: 50 grams, 100 grams, 250 grams, 500 grams, and a kilo bar of gold. Now that's a tiny little Swiss Army knife over there to the right, and keep that $100 bill in the background in mind. You know, you can pretty much lay it on top of the kilo bar of gold, and it's longer and almost as wide. So a kilo bar of gold, it might sound like a lot, it might sound like an incredible amount of wealth, and it is, but it doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and it only weighs about 2.2 pounds. And you know, it's pretty easy to move about. However, it carries with it a significant amount of wealth. So that's a neat little visual image there of small amounts of gold, however, a lot bigger values. And you can see the original slide in the background, those very small denominations, the gram, all the way up through the ounce cube. Now we're getting into some big money. Here's a 400 ounce gold bar. Now you can see it's, any of us here on the channel could carry that. We could walk off with that fairly easily, I imagine. Now this 400 ounce gold bar, now the prices here, a lot of these slides are from 2012, so you're going to see prices that aren't an accurate reflection of current prices. This is back when gold was skyrocketing up to about 1800. Now at 2,000 an ounce, that bar would be worth $800,000. That's the cash next to it. So at $2,000 an ounce, that bar would take that much cash next to it to purchase a bar like that. 800 grand at just 2 grand an ounce. So the gold bar is extremely heavy, weighing more than 3 full milk jugs. Yes, about what, 25 pounds, 24 pounds, something like that. It's quite heavy. Now here you go. Here's what a ton of gold looks like. At $2,000 an ounce, this is $64 million. So a ton of gold. You could fit that. Now you would need probably some reinforcement or a concrete slab in your basement. You could carry down there 1 or 2 bars at a time. But this would be very hard to store just on your floor itself. You know, putting a ton in a very small space, 2,000 pounds. I don't believe most structures, most rural homes or wood-framed homes are built to sustain a ton sitting on a very small space like that. Now there you go. That's 2,000 pounds of gold, $64.3 million. Incredible view there. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I think this is a pretty fun little visual of gold and versus cash, and it's kind of why I wanted to bring these slides to your attention. And there you go. There's the watermark for demonocracy.info. And again, I got these from the Visual Capitalist. So gold is so heavy that the suspension on an average truck would break if it held any more than pictured above. Even if the truck's suspension broke, the load of gold in the back could buy 2,660 brand new trucks at an MSRP of $40,000 per truck. Now, if that's a 3/4 ton truck, you could easily put a ton in the back. It would wear on the suspension and the brakes and so on, but you could haul it. You know, especially the truck that's in that picture there. I happen to know these things as an American. We got some big trucks in this country, America trucks, and that truck there that you're looking at, that's probably it's representing what would be the equivalent of like an F-250 or an F-350, and you could easily put about a ton in the back of that. You know, if it wasn't your truck, it wouldn't. You wouldn't care as much. If it was yours, you might be looking at some wear and tear that's unnecessary. But look at the comparative cash stack for that giant pallet of gold, that ton of gold. Look how much cash it would take. So for all those people out there that think that they, a pile of cash is really cool to have, the gold's way cooler. You know, and you can tell by here's 10 tons of gold. That's next to the 100 tons. So the pallet you see there, the little pallet, is 10 tons of gold. 10 tons. And the big pallet, see the big one there? That's 100 tons. So, you know, it's about a 6-foot guy can stand next to it. That's 100 tons of gold. Incredible. And remember, all those little bars, 400 ounces a piece. So that's what 100 tons would look like if you were standing next to it. Now this semi-truck, he's carrying the maximum load it can legally carry. Now that's 25 tons, and this is what 24.88 tons of gold looks like. That would be 1.6 billion. So when you hear numbers, this kind of helps me think about it. When you hear all the numbers thrown around on the financial networks, when you hear about like a 780 or 800 billion dollar bank bailout, or when you hear things like this merger or that merger, or hey, here's a perfect example. The lottery that the United States just had, the biggest Powerball in history, occurred about a month or two ago, and it measured, I think, $1.6 billion. 1.6 billion. So that lottery, if you had won it and that's how much you got immediately, of course, I know the tax, just sake argument, taxes, cash out front, I know there's differences here, but let's pretend for a moment here. It's 1.6 billion. That's what it would look like if it was converted into gold or cash. Imagine a semi-truck pulling up in front of your house and saying, okay, here's your $1.6 billion in gold. It's pretty neat. But look how much gold it takes. Each one of those pallets corresponds to a pallet of that cash over there. See all that cash? And then, you know, it takes a pretty big stack of cash to buy a pallet of gold. Now, this is an interesting model for those that talk about the defense industry, the United States military, or any country's military apparatus for that matter. You know, the cost of sustaining that type of complex, that military-industrial complex, and you look at just the cost of war in general, and then you go back, you look at some of the lectures we've read on here, especially the one by Ferdinand Lips on Gold Wars, talking about the connection of a gold standard and its elimination, and how once governments were rid of the chains that shackled them to adhering to a gold standard, they were able to spend more and really ramp up war and spending on war. So this Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit bomber program, it costs $44.75 billion for a total of 21 units, which averages to $2,130,952,380 per unit. Shown here is the amount of gold it costs to buy one unit. Now remember, they built 21 units, and just to build one, that's how much gold it required in costs. So that's all the cash to the left, that's all the gold to the right. So when a government announces it's building this or it's building that, and it's going to cost, X amount of dollars, when they say, oh, we built a jet and it cost us $2.1 billion, translate that in your mind into that image of gold there. It's about a semi-truckload and a half. Here is the entire gold reserves of the United States government, which is about 8,133.5 tons. Now, I know there's a lot of skepticism out there and theories. I don't want to call them conspiracy theories because I believe that many, if not all, conspiracy theories hold some kind of a merit, because all you're saying when you have a conspiracy theory is that you believe there are people that are capable of working together to conspire to do illegal things or commit fraud or acts that are devious in nature. And yes, human nature is very capable of committing devious acts, and people work together to commit devious acts all the time. So it would not surprise me if there was a group of people, a cabal, that conspired to move, steal, or ship away, or somehow acquire through illegal means the physical yellow metal, the gold of the United States Treasury. Very possible. Whether or not we own it, who knows? Whether or not it's still there, it is on the books. And yes, some people claim to have seen it. There has been some inspections, and every once in a while you see some leaked photos. They allow, like, the Wall Street Journal in there to take a picture of some bars. But for the sake of this discussion and this image, here is the entire gold reserve of the United States. Look at that. Pretty large little area there. Each one of those pallets, again, significant amount, 10 tons of gold. But a lot of gold there, ladies and gentlemen. Lot of gold. It's going to get even cooler. Here is the gold that, central banks, right? All the big central banks out there. Again, that we just looked at the United States being the king on the block there, 8,133. Now look at these other countries. Again, these are old numbers. I got to clear that up. This is from 2012. So Russia and China have both been adding a significant amount of gold to their reserves, so their stacks are going to be a little bit bigger. And for scale, there's the little white pickup truck with his bed full, 1 ton of gold. But again, here's another image that you can think about when you read the Wall Street Journal or CNBC or Market Watch, and you hear financial experts talking about gold or mentioning gold. Or how about you hear a central banker, any central banker for that matter, a guy like Bernanke or Yellen or former Chairman Greenspan, or pick a name, any of the central bankers out there on the planet, and if they start to talk against gold or say they don't believe it has any merit, and and if they're asked why they hold gold, and they just say, oh, out of tradition, we just hold gold out of tradition, as Mr. Bernanke was quoted when questioned by Ron Paul, you can think to yourself, well, who would own that level of wealth and secure that much wealth in just an inert space like that, just not doing anything, if it had no value to do so? And these are the financial leaders of the world. These are the architects of the entire world economy. They're the guys that are on the helm. They're steering the ship. They're the pilot of the jet, whatever analogy you want to use. They're the guys in control. They're flying it. And here they are sitting on an insane pile of gold. Those are the central banks right there. The biggest. Those are just the biggest ones. There's other central banks that aren't in this image. And sorry, Canadian viewers, your gold is in this picture. And if you see the guy in the suit down there at the bottom in the blue suit, that's the Canadian. They got the white hair there. And he has a couple of British sovereigns in his pocket. That's all the gold that Canada has left in physical form, above ground, refined in bar form. So unfortunately, Canada ditched all their gold over the last couple of decades, several decades, and they are now at a zero balance essentially. So pretty impressive image of gold there. And again, here's a zoom in. We'll look at that Iran, India, Netherlands, Russia, Switzerland, European Central Bank there. Again, this is 2012, slightly outdated. And you got a little closer view of that Canadian there. He's kind of clutching his left side. He's tapping that little pocket with his 3 or 4 sovereigns in it. That's all the gold the Canadians have left. Here's an impressive image now. Now again, these are palletized, so there's space in between the bars and space in between the pallets themselves. But right there, that is all the gold, all the physical gold ever mined, give or take. It's an estimation, but ever mined since the beginning of time, since the dawn of man, since the first Cro-Magnon scooped into a creek and pulled out a placer nugget, to today in 2000, and well, in this image 2012. Over that entire span of time, that is all the gold ever mined and refined by human beings. And an interesting fact that I did learn years ago in reading, and I don't remember the source or where, and I might be off by a bit, but sometime since about 1955, somewhere in there, let's just say 1950s or 60s, I think it might have been even 1965. From that point to now, 50% of that gold came into existence. Because of technology, the Industrial Revolution, and the efficiency of new machines and the way we operated as humans, we essentially added to 50% of that stack came from just the last 60 or 70 years of mining. But it's getting a lot harder, and it's getting very depleted, as you've heard and read the sources. We pretty much exhausted a lot of the Earth's gold supplies fairly quickly, and it only increases at about a rate of anywhere from 1 to 3% a year. Okay, all gold mined in history, that's what we just looked at, stacked in 400-ounce bars. The 166,500 tons is actually divided into 4 levels. The bottom level is jewelry, 50.5% of all gold. The second level is private investment, 18.7%. The third level is the world governments, 17.4%. I've also heard that number increased to 19%, so world governments now control 19% of the gold. And the highest level is the other uses of gold, such as industry, which is 13.4%. So hopefully that makes sense, that you can break that down, that image, into the different levels and how much and who controls what amount of gold. Now, this image here we're looking at is all the gold in the world, again, all the gold ever mined, not in pallets, not in bars. If it were melted and formed into one gigantic cube, all the gold in the world into one cube, there it is, sitting there. It's a 20.5 meter sided cube. So each side measures 20 by 20. There it is, sitting in an Olympic swimming pool. You've got a house sitting in there as well. Now, you can see the 10-ton and the 100-ton pallet in the lower part of the screen there. And that entire cube of gold, if it melted, supposedly would fill that swimming pool. So, according to the diagram here. But I kind of have a feeling that they might be off there. I've always heard that it was like 1.5 or 2 swimming pools, 2 Olympic swimming pools if they were molten. But there you go. That's a neat visual image there. Giant cube of gold. All the gold ever mined. So if you walked up, now this image here helps you think of some things too. If that were the cornerstone, that cube of the entire world economy, you could tie all the currencies to it and then fluctuate their values based on the value of gold. It's very possible because every little chip or flake that comes off of that would represent a certain valuation of currency. So for the people that think there's not enough gold on the planet for the world economy, they're clearly wrong. This is just looking at gold. We're not even considering silver here. If silver were to be represented, there's a lot of that. And I know there's some theories on where silver is, how much of it being destroyed and whatnot during its applications. But hopefully this was a fun little slideshow for you guys to take the time to look at. Interesting. Very interesting to look at gold represented this way. We talk about it quite a bit on this channel. It's a pretty heavily addressed theme. And if you ever get the chance, you can always come back to this video and refer to it and just get some visual images of certain amounts, certain weights of gold, certain values of gold. And it's just something that I find entertaining at the least. So hopefully you guys had a good time today on just this one alone. I'll try to stop by later on. We'll try to produce a video on some of the new headlines out today. We'll take a look later once the news starts to really develop and churn out, see what comes up, what we can generate as far as discussion. Thanks for all your participation here on the channel. As always, thanks for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, and for your participation on the Junior Small P channel. Have a good day.